Hello, and welcome to How to Listen So Your Teens Will Talk. I'm Licia Knudsen, resource parent of teens, resource parent coach, trainer, and speaker. I'm so glad you decided to join my class today. Today, you will learn some practical tips and some strategies on how to get your teen to talk. It's a bit of a challenge, especially with teens, to get them to open up and to communicate. But I have found the number one way to get teens to talk, and that is to listen. So get your notebook out, your iPad or your iPhone, and a pen or a stylus, and let's get ready to learn. Are you guys ready? Let's get started. So let's talk about what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about and understand who are the teens in foster care, building trust and relationship with teens. We're also going to cover the most important thing, how to listen. And then we're going to do some practical application and some listening. This phrase, finally, an adult that listens, I gotta say, was one of my shining moments. This was a statement made from a teenager who was in foster care that I was called upon to do some coaching. The placement was pretty challenging and the resource parents didn't know what to do. So they asked me to step in to see if I could figure out what was going on with the kids and the relationship with the parents. After about 25, 30 minutes, of this teenager just talking and talking and talking, and me listening and listening and listening, he says this: finally, an adult that listens. While that was my shining moment, it wasn't such a shining moment for the adult species, right? So basically, what he was saying was, we don't listen very well. We do a lot of talking, a lot of giving advice, a lot of suggestions, and a lot of telling them what to do. But apparently, as adults, we don't listen very well at all. So before we even start to listen, we have to begin to build trust and a relationship with our teens. So let's talk about these teens that we're going to build a relationship with. Who are they? Now, the typical answer is when you have teens in foster care, they've experienced trauma, they may have depression, ADHD, on medication, have been abused, neglected, the list goes on, right? That's normal. That's what we're expecting. And that's what we always think when we talk about teens in foster care. But I want to present something else to you. I want to present another side of teenagers, the side that is more positive. So for instance, I don't know if you know, they value transparency. They want to know that you're real. They don't want an adult that's holier than thou, meaning that we're so perfect and we're always trying to tell them what to do and how to improve themselves. They want to hear that we've made mistakes too. They also want to hear how we fixed it. They also want us to be relatable. Can they relate to us? I'm not saying that you have to go and say, you know, when I was a child, I was beaten and molested and all of these different things. You don't have to give all the details, but you can say, I understand. I went through some really hard times too. I felt rejected or I felt abandoned or whatever it may be. They want to know, are you relatable? Authenticity. Are you real? Can you keep it real? Are you real and not fake? Are you trying to pretend that you're someone that you're not? And believe you me, Teenagers will spot it 10 miles away, not 1 mile, 10 miles away. If somebody is fake, they will know it. One of the things that I have been gifted with is authenticity. I worked with kids in juvenile hall or juvenile probation, and I was a mentor and a coach. And believe it or not, people are saying, well, they don't really talk and they don't want to open up. But these kids did. Why? Because they knew I was real. I didn't lie to them. I told them how it was, even if they didn't want to hear it. And they respected it. Respect. And we're going to talk about that later, what it really means. These teenagers these days, they want a cause. They want to champion a cause and they want justice. So why is this important? Because if we're going to build a relationship with these teenagers, we have to understand their needs, what they value, and what they like. So what is the goal? Obviously, the goal is to build a relationship with our teens, right? So my question to you is, what are you willing to do to make that happen? What are you willing to do or not do to make that happen? And here's what I mean. Are you willing to change the way you typically parent? Are you willing to get some new ideas or get some new suggestions on a better way to communicate? Are you willing to not jump into old patterns and poor behaviors regarding to communication or relationship with kids and teens? So I'm asking you, what are you willing to do or not to do? And I gotta say that sometimes there's this idea that parents get to treat kids any way they want to, that we're the adults, they listen to us and they do what we say, and we can speak to them any type of way that we want. That's kind of old school parenting. I was raised that way. Well, I'm going to tell you that type of parenting doesn't typically work with the teenagers that we deal with on a daily basis, the kids we foster and those that are not in foster care. Okay, so are we willing to put away old ways of parenting, and are we willing to accept some new ways? I want you to think about that. Before we can start listening, they have to trust us enough to talk to us. Kids just aren't going to start talking to you just because. Now you do get some, but most teenagers are like, let me feel you out first. Let me see what you're all about before I start telling you anything. They have to learn to trust us before they even begin to talk to us. Can they trust you? Can they trust you to love them regardless of fill in the blanks, of their sexual or gender identity, their race, their color, their religious practices? Can they trust you to love them regardless of fill in the blank? Can they trust you not to judge, to condemn, or shame them? Can they trust you to be emotionally consistent in your response? Let me explain that a little bit. Can they trust you to have the same response no matter how small or how big the situation is? If something really serious happened, can they trust you not to explode? Can they trust you to not explode this time and not explode the next time? Or are you inconsistent? Like one time you explode and the next time you're pretty chill about it. Can they trust you to be emotionally consistent? Let's talk about building relationships. Now, We've all heard that phrase, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Same thing with kids, even more so with them. They don't care what you know, how much wisdom you have, how much knowledge and experience you have. If they don't think you care, they don't want to hear it. So we need to find out what our kids like. Who are they? What are they interested in? Are they involved in fashion or art or the movies or basketball? Even if it's something you yourself do not like. I had a young lady in my home who loved anime. I have no clue about anime whatsoever, not even a little bit. But she would come in the living room and she'd sit and watch show after show after show. So finally I thought, you know what? Why don't you just ask her about it? And I tell you what, when I said, hey, who was that character? Her eyes lit up. It was like I'd won the connection lottery. And she was like, this is so-and-so, and this is so-and-so, and they do this and that. I don't really care about anime, but she does. So now I do. So when she would come and watch, I would stand there and be like, oh, that's so-and-so, right? And they do this, right? And it was wonderful. It made a difference. It opened the door for relationship. It opened the door for communication in the future. Let's talk about respect. That word has so many different meanings. So let's talk about what it is and what is it traditionally and culturally. Different cultures and traditions have different meanings for respect, right? For instance, respect down south could be you say, yes, ma'am, no, sir. You get up and you let the elders have the chair. You call them Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. Culturally, it could be that it is disrespectful to look an adult in the eye. Whereas here in America, looking in the eye is a sign of respect and that you're paying attention, right? So it means different things to different people and different cultures. So here is the true definition of respect. It means due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others, consideration, thoughtfulness, attentiveness, politeness, courtesy, and so on. That is the definition of respect. And so how does that apply to teenagers? In a nutshell, it means they don't want you to treat them like they're idiots. They want us as adults to value their opinion, their thoughts, their philosophies. They want us to just value it and honor it, right? Instead of saying something like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. What in the world are you thinking? You know, they would want us to say something like, huh, well, that is a theory. You know, and even if their ideas and philosophies or what they're thinking makes zero sense whatsoever, they still want to know that what they think, feel, and who they are is valued and respected. So here's a couple ways to show respect. Give them a voice. Ask their opinion, and guess what? Even use it, okay? Respect their point of view. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to be on the same political party side or philosophy, but you do have to value them as a human being and how they feel. And then the best way to respect is to listen, which is what we're going to get into. Now for the fun part. We're going to talk about how to listen so your teen will talk. Let's talk about signs of a good listener. And if you look at this lady right here, she doesn't sound like she want to hear nothing from nobody, okay? Right? The folded arms, that is not good body language of a listener. A good body language of listeners means we're leaning forward. We're saying, okay, we're acknowledging what they're saying. Another sign is we engage in their emotion. If they're like sad and they just had a breakup and they're, whatever it is, and we come across with, girl, suck it up. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Okay, we're not engaging in their emotion. I'm not saying you have to fall on the ground and cry with them, but you can be empathetic and be sad because they're sad, right? And another sign of a good listener is to control the shock face. Like if they tell you something and you go, oh, what? Are you? Control the shock face. Keep it neutral. Sometimes they tell us things for the shock value to see what the rise they can get out of us or to see what buttons they can push. Practice to control the shock face and acknowledge, okay, Here are the 4 ways to listen. Listen to understand, listen without judgment, listen without trying to fix it, and listen without interrupting. Let's talk about the first one, listen to understand. The word understand means to perceive the intended meaning of words, the speaker, a language. So just because your child says, I hate school, does that really mean they hate school? Or if they're talking to you about, some incident that happened at school and they come across with, my life stinks. Do they really think that? What is the intended meaning of what she said? And that's where asking questions come in. Or more listening. Listening without trying to fix it. Sometimes they just want to vent. They just want us to listen, right? How many of you just had a rough day and you go to tell somebody and you're just trying to get it off your chest and then they try to fix it and you were like, I just wanted you to listen, right? Same with kids. Even though as parents and adults, we're like, oh, we got to fix this problem. We got to make sure that this doesn't happen again and so on and so forth. We go into parent mode and fix it mode, and they may not want us to fix it. They may want us to just listen. And if you feel the urge to have to fix the problem, before you do, ask permission. You could say something like, okay, wow, is this something you just want to just talk about? Or did you want me to give suggestions? And if they say, no, I just want to talk, okay, sip it, right? Determine if it's an emergency and needs to be addressed immediately. If it doesn't need to be addressed immediately, then you know what? You can come back around to it later on, right? You don't have to say, for instance, they say, you know what? Hey, guess what? We had 10 people in our car today and it's only a 2-seater and we just piled in, right? And they're just all excited. And of course, me as a parent, I want to say, that is so dangerous. You know better than to do that. Where was the seatbelt? Right? And the reason why we would probably not say it right then is because they're trying to share a moment, even though it was unwise. We could just kind of go, and then come back later on after they had their conversation with you and say, hey, you know what? I know you guys were thinking you guys are having fun piling in the car. I just want to say that, you know what? Everybody needs to have a seatbelt on. And that person can get arrested or get a ticket. And it wasn't very safe. Come back around to it. If it's a 911 situation, then intervene. If they're saying, oh, I think I want to commit suicide, well, that's something you're not going to want to come back around to. You're going to want to have a conversation right away. Okay. Listen without trying to fix it. Listen without interrupting. I have done workshop after workshop after workshop after workshop. And when I talk about listening and I say, which one of these 4 is the hardest? This one gets hands up all over the building. I want to encourage you all to practice to listen without interrupting. Here's why. When we interrupt people when they're talking, that is a huge form of disrespect. What we're saying is, I don't care what you have to say. What I have to say is so much more important. So shut up and let me talk. That doesn't go over very well with adults, and it surely doesn't go over well with teenagers. Because if they're talking about what they need to talk about and they're just all passionate about it and you just interrupt to give your 2 cents, you're just saying, Jose, I don't care what you have to say. Listen to me. That's not going to build good relationship, and it's not going to build trust. Listen without judgment. Judgment means an opinion or conclusion. And here's what listening from a place of judgment would sound like. Say your child comes in and says, hey, I got suspended from school today. And you respond immediately with, you see, I told you you had a smart mouth. I knew your smart mouth and your bad temper was going to get you in trouble one day. See, I knew it. Mark my words. You don't get it together, boy, you're going to end up in jail. Now, we've already cast judgment. We've given our opinion, and we don't even know what happened. We don't even know what happened. So what would listening without judgment look like? It would look like this. He comes home and he says, hey, I got suspended today. And our response would be, well, what happened? Now, you see how that question of what happened does not give blame. It doesn't judge. It doesn't say it's automatically your fault. And you might find out that, he got suspended because some boy was being bullied and he intervened and they all got suspended. Okay, listen without judgment. Now, I want you to watch this video clip, and then you're going to take this and do some homework around this, okay? So keep your eyes open because it is a silent movie, so you got to watch the subtitles. Woo! That was a lot. So many things. So let's practice with this video. Remember, we have listen without interrupting, listen without trying to fix it, listen without judgment, and listening. Yep. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. All right, let's get ready to practice. There was so much in that video, so many messages. She was saying so much. Now, here's going to be the challenge, is that when things are escalated, when they're saying mean things to you, like you suck, and I don't even want to be here, or, you're horrible, your vegan cheesecake sucks, or they're telling you to F off, or they're saying, I can't stand you, or they're saying things like that, it's a little bit harder to hear what they're trying to say. It's a little bit harder to listen, to understand, because when they're saying those mean and harsh things, it hits our feelings, and now we have our feelings hurt. And I want to just say, practice that when they're saying those harsh things, that we're less concerned about our feelings, but we're really trying to understand what they're saying. So, for instance, in this, you're not my mother, so don't act like it. What might she be saying? Could she really be just saying, I miss my mom? Right? I didn't ask to be here. What might she be saying? If we're really listening to understand, what might she be saying? Could she be saying, this sucks because somebody else's mistakes make me be here and it's not where I wanted to be? You're horrible. Does she really mean you're horrible? Does she really mean you're horrible? Or is she hurting? So I want you to think about it. When your kids are in they're escalating and they're saying these harsh things, what are they really saying? So more practice. This week, I want you to listen without interrupting. I know. And if you do happen to interrupt, then I would like for you to apologize and then let them talk. Okay? Apologize. I'm so sorry I interrupted you. Please continue. Now, just because they pause in between a sentence doesn't mean it's your turn to jump in. You can ask a question. Can I share something? And if they say no, then no. Okay? So you're going to practice listening without interrupting, and you're also going to practice listening to understand. Listening to understand. Okay? I have been working with youth for 30 years. And I got to tell you that listening has been my secret weapon. It has built some of the strongest relationships that I have with teens that I mentored 20 years ago, that still let me know when they're having a baby, that still want me to be a part of their life, or mention me on Facebook and give me all kind of accolades, which of course is not why I do it, but it shows the level of the relationship that we have. And it all became, and it all came because they felt heard. For teenagers, being heard and understood and respect are the top two needs. And if we can practice listening and let them know that they are heard, let them know that when they come to us, we're not going to judge, we're not going to shame them, we're not going to make them feel like idiots, we're not going to condemn them, we're not going to, prejudge what they did. If they can come to us and know that they are heard, it doesn't mean we agree, and we don't have to. But if they know they can come to you and they can come to me with whatever, we're winning. That's how we're going to build relationships. That's how we're going to make impact in these kids' lives. They have been tossed around. They have been told what to do. You can't live here. You have to live there. You can't see this person, but you can't see that one. The courts, the judge, the social workers have all taken their voice, and they have no input in their own lives. I want to encourage you to be that place where they can listen. So let's wrap it up. We got to build those relationships, right? How we respond is important. Being transparent and showing respect, and practicing these 4 ways to listen. If you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me here. And here's my book, Life in the Foster Lane. And this is practical, practical insights on fostering teens. and you will get so much information out of this, especially if you're just starting or you think you might be a little afraid to foster a teen. This book will help put your mind at ease a little bit. Thank you. Thank you again for all you do for this most vulnerable population. And thank you for taking the time to take these classes, to take this webinar, to learn how to listen so your teen will talk. They need you. They need to be heard. They need to be understood. They need to be able to find a solid person that will accept them and love them and hear them no matter what they have to say. And even if you don't have a teenager, I want to encourage you to do this with your little ones. When they start to tell those very, 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 very long stories, the more you listen, the more you engage, the more they're going to want to come back to you. And the more they'll want to share with you. And the more you'll be able to pour into their lives. So even with your bio kids and your foster kids, it's the same. If they know you'll listen, then they will talk. Thank you again for joining me today. I'm Licia Knudsen, and you can find me at liciaknudsen.com. Also, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, I do a Facebook Live on Instagram. I do an Instagram Live at 11 a.m. at realtalk.parentcoaching. And at 11:30, I am live over on Facebook with Real Talk Parent Coaching. And I give some practical and some sound advice and tools, just like I did here. Well, it was awesome to be able to share this with you. Take care, and thank you for just loving on one of our most vulnerable populations. Have a fantastic day. I look forward to connecting with you. Bye-bye. So, expectation. This is a definite expectation. I believe that something is going to happen, and you know how you have it all set up in your mind. It's going to look like this, it's going to look like this, and then we're going to do that. That's expectation. When we decided to become resource parents, my husband is a career coach. I am a life coach and teen coach and parent coach. So we're like, you know what? We're going to get these teen girls. We're going to bring them in here. We're going to get them ready for the world. We're going to teach them about budgeting, life skills, job skills. We're going to sit around the table and sing Kumbaya. We're going to have dinner every night. And that's what it's going to be like. Nope. Our first girl was like, no, thank you. We want none of that. I don't even want to sit at the dinner table with you. I just want to go to school, go to work, come home. So, and what happened was we're trying to fulfill our expectations and put them on her. And so we were clashing all the time. And then I had this aha moment like, hey, why don't you find out what she wants? I was like, oh. And so I said, how can we support you? Because it's not like she's a 5-year-old. She was 17. And by then she had already raised herself, right? She's already done all the hard work. And so I said, how can we support you? She said, really, all I really want is support around getting to school and my job, a place to rest, a safe place, and food. I was like, I can do that. So we quit trying to have all these kumbaya moments, and we quit trying to have all the things. We invited her to dinner, to the table. One thing we did do is we said once a week we have to eat together, just once, just one time. And at one time I had 2 girls. One girl would cook. That one time, each one of us had a week to cook. And they would cook something from their culture and all that stuff. So that was my expectations, and it got shot out of the water. What's the very least you should expect from these kids? Is there a very least you should expect? Yeah,
I used to say, you can expect them to be breathing, but if they have asthma, that could be a right. You really cannot expect anything. And so what I want to encourage is expectancy. Okay, we know something's gonna go down. We know, and we kind of have an idea, of the kind of kids we're getting, but we don't know because I have a girl, or I had a girl who met all of the criteria for someone with severe trauma and all, I mean, just right. If you look at her on paper, she should be punching holes in my walls, doing all the things, right? But she didn't at all. And it was probably one of my easiest ones. I mean, wasn't a piece of cake. Let me just tell you that one. But what I had prior to her, I guess it's all relative. The two I had before, one was a probation kid, excuse me, and the other one was a runner. So having those two back to back, and then having this one, I was like, somebody pinch me. Am I dreaming? Because this just seems too easy. This just, and again, it wasn't like easy, easy, nothing ever happened because we had a lot happen. But comparatively speaking, right, it was like, I can do this. I can do this. Okay, now I'm done doing this and I have 3 weeks left. Yeah. So, but have the idea, okay, we're kind of ready. We're kind of going to go with the flow here, right? We want expectancy. We do have an expectation of, when they come in your home, they will do chores. I make all my kids do chores, all of them, all of them. You live here, you gonna work here, okay? Um, and we had an idea, but our idea was kind of like, okay, let's get to know her. Let's see where she is. This is what they said, but let's see how she responds in our home. Because just because it's on paper, and say if you get a kid who responded a certain way in another home, does not mean they're going to respond the same way in yours. You may have the magic sauce. You may have the magic sauce that is just for that child, and everything that they say happened in the other home, you're going like, but she's been here a whole year. I've not seen not one of those, right? So you kind of say, okay, I'm have an expectancy of, but I don't know what it's going to look like, and I'm not going to put a shape and idea behind it.